Okay. Yeah. Uh, the other day we were talking about the importance of ethnicity and the conflicts that are happening in the northeast part. So you can see here the same thing. There are ongoing discussions. You will have many more editorials on this, but when you're reading these headlines, what is it that you should take away? Okay, focus on the names of these ethnic groups. Yesterday there was one ethnic group, today there was one. What is happening in the northeastern part of the country, and what is the constitutional solution for these issues? Are there any special provisions? What is the difference between 5th schedule and 6th schedule? You should know the difference, right? That's what it is. uh, okay. Are there any other important news articles that you need to know? No. That's it. Yeah. This can be a important prelims pointer. Generally, whenever you have first as a keyword, that's something that is often repeated in previous year questions. So any news item that has this keyword first will often be repeated in prelims level. So for next year prelims, this can be important. So you can note it down and store it somewhere in your prelims notes. That is what you have to take away. But from this article, how can you use it for mains? This is what you should understand. See, unless and until we have the necessary infrastructure for SDG 11 or 12, responsible consumption. Okay, reduce, reuse, and recycle. This will remain a slogan if you don't have the necessary state support. And you need to leverage public-private partnerships to make this happen. In this model, you will see, this model, DBFOT model on a public-private partnership basis. Okay, what does this mean? Build, design, finance, operate, and transfer. So there is this waste recycling plant where the government will not involve in any part of it. They'll just give the land and leave it just like that. And the private party, which is actually, responsible for building this, they will take care of everything: design, building it, gathering money, how to build it, finances, operation, and transfer. And in return, they will have a period of time for which they can get revenue out of it, make profit, and then transfer that to the government and leave. This is the model. So why is this relevant? In GS3 you will have investment models. It is relevant there. Okay, here there is another line called we will regularize workers. Okay, what do you mean by regularization of workers? In kinds of, see, for example, in the topic of employment, you have kinds of employment: formal, informal. Okay, formal and informal. What do you mean by formal jobs? What do you mean by informal jobs? Informal jobs means they do not have any security, social security or financial security. Formal jobs means the companies will be registered or the organizations will be registered. And sometimes even when the organizations are registered, there will be contractual employees only as per contract. Even then they will not have job security. So this news suggests that they will try to regularize. First maybe take on contract and then make them full time. Okay, that is what the news says. That's all you need to know. Yeah, a few days ago we have seen that there was a ship accident where we also discussed the importance of marine pollution and how to take care of that issue. So this news is about that ship accident. Kerala government plans to claim insurance. Okay. So one observation that you can make from this, I'm not expecting you to by heart this news or note down this news or anything. Just while reading this, you need to observe how insurance as a mechanism, the mechanism of claiming an insurance, under what conditions is an insurance not valid. Please note this. If you ever read a news article and you see under this condition insurance cannot be claimed, that exception will become important for your UPSC prelims. You have seen this movie, oh my god. Okay, there is something called Act of God. In Telugu, Gopala Gopala. Act of God. So, during the COVID crisis, a lot of insurances were denied for businesses on this class. Meaning, something like a pandemic or something like an earthquake or a natural disaster, which was not planned for, if it happens, all the people who are victims of that disaster would come and claim insurance. And insurance companies, how will they work? If all of us take premiums, only one of us will claim in that particular period, not everyone. If everyone claims, then it is not insurance company. That's not a business model at all. So there will be some exceptions under which this insurance claims will not be valid. So when you are reading this article, focus on that. Now, the next question is census and the remaking of people. See, yesterday I gave you a homework. How many of you did it? Okay, what is census? Can you tell me? What are the two stages under which census is carried out? First is house listing. Second is head count. First is you are counting the number of houses. Second is you are counting the number of people in it. It happens in two phases. According to which act? Census Act 1948. Which ministry? Which department or which office? Registrar General of? Complete it. Yes. Okay. These are the basics that you need to know. Census happens in how many years? Once in how many years? So, when was the last? 2015. So, why are we having a delay? Post-COVID delay. Now, what are the associated issues we discussed yesterday? I even asked you to read the Telegram channel and I gave you 3 dimensions that you need to look at census standpoint. What are the 3 dimensions where census becomes the bare minimum requirement for taking policy action? What are the 3 measures? Yesterday itself I asked you to read the article. Finance Commission, Delimitation Commission and no. Welfare schemes, targeting beneficiaries. Okay. Bare minimum, it's common sense, right? So, socio-economic caste census is used as the database for targeting some people. Some beneficiaries were identified through SECC for some schemes. Now, today's homework is which schemes use socio-economic caste census as the basis. Check. Very important for prelims. And what can be the logic of using SECC? Why not census? Do we calculate OBC census OBCs in census? Why only SC and ST? What can be the logic? Historically, at the time of independence, take a look at Article 17. The difference in the nature of discrimination against SCs and STs is different from how there is a discrimination of OBCs. At the time of independence, there are inequalities on social level, uh, economic level, political level, educational, respect, dignity, every aspect for SCs and STs. So right from the beginning, even from the first census itself, you will have SCs and STs as a part of the enumeration activity. The last time caste was a factor in census is 1931. But you are saying that we have socio-economic caste census in 2011. Are this the same? No. Two different surveys. Okay. So the caste census debate that you are looking at doesn't mean no caste is ever enumerated in the census. We are talking about the caste census in the context of enumeration of OBCs as a part of the census activity, primarily because the last time any data on the number of OBCs in this country was way back in maybe 1970s, Mandal Commission. On the basis of the data of this Mandal Commission, we have had this entire OBC reservation issue, Indira Sawhney judgment, glass ceiling, upper ceiling of 50%. All those issues came up because of the census. Now, if you are carrying out a census and there is an OBC percentage that is out there in the public, the demand for reservation will increase. How will that fragmentation of society impact other walks of life? Politicization of caste and casteization of politics, two different phenomena. I am using some phrases, please note this down. Politicization of caste and casteization of politics. Okay. You need to know the difference between this. Politicization of caste means using caste as a political tool and seeking votes. Casteization of politics is actually identity based politics, where, let's say for example, BSP, Bahujan Samaj Party, it's a political organization on the lines of identity of Dalits. Dalit identity has been the mobilizing force behind that party. That is casteization of politics. Politicization of caste means one national party or any regional party appealing to a particular caste group to mobilize votes. Of course, when you do this during the time of election, it is an electoral offense according to the Representation of People Act. Okay, that's a different issue. We will talk about it later. For all of this, census is a prerequisite, and it is in this context we need to understand the importance of demography. So when you're reading demography, go to your sociology textbooks, NCRT 11th class. You will see the structure. Are you able to see this? Structure of a population. What do you mean by the structure of a population or a demography? Meaning, how many of them are old age people, how many of them are young, how many of them are working age population. Basically, you're taking a look at the composition of a country and classifying them according to their age. That is demographic studies. Why do you think we should study demography? What is the necessity of studying demo means graphy is measuring. Demos means people. Democracy is a rule by the people. Demos in Greek is people. Okay. Demography. Graphy means measurement. Why are we understanding this science of demography? Why are we trying to emphasize on that? Because data is giving us an insight into policy making. Whether, let's say for example, if the transition of a particular demography happens in such a way that one age group is increasing, another age group is decreasing, then your government priorities should be to empower this particular group which needs more help. Let's say we are right now under a demographic transition. Anyone with geography optional? No one? Okay, fine. There is a concept called demographic transition theory. Every country passes through different phases of their population structure. For example, take the case of Japan right now. They are aging very quickly. There are not enough young people. And if you take this situation and ask a sociologist to figure out what is exactly happening, they will link it to the economic models. So this is the interdisciplinary study that you need to focus on. Demography is studied under geography. Let's say for example, okay, you have this rough map of India. Okay, it may not look like India, but let's consider this is India. My artistic skills are very bad, so across this country you will see the spread of, you know, population density is uneven. First of all, it's uneven. Even the age spread, spatial spread of a particular age group, that is also not even. For example, take the case of South India. Population is measured by the age group of a population can be correlated to a concept called total fertility rate or fertility rate in general. Okay. When you are reading the concepts of society in depth, you will be seeing a lot of concepts, the definitions of fertility rate. You can just for now understand that the total number of children that a woman can give birth to, that is total fertility rate in her age, in her reproductive age. So northern states, they still have more and more children. Southern states are having less than the replacement level. So if one generation is aging, another generation should exactly replace them, and there will be a number. That number is 2 roughly. Don't ask me how 2.1, what is that 0.1 child. I'm just statistically speaking, roughly let's say 2 children. In the north you have more, 3.2. There were situations when there were 4 also. So population is getting controlled, but it is much quicker in the southern states. So there is a uneven spatial spread of the population. This will have an impact on politics. This will have an impact on the resources allocated to those states. So when a finance commission is legislated, for example, there is a certain weightage to the population, right? So if the southern states are getting penalized for actually controlling the population, that will create an imbalance in the federal structure of this country. The northern states will feel that they are more powerful because they're getting more finances. And when you look at the contribution of the northern states, in, let's say, a metric to see this contribution is the GST collections, okay, or income tax collections. You will notice that southern states contribute more, and yet we do not get the same kind of resources. So in a country like India, where federalism is the nature, quasi-federalism, not exactly federalism also, where there is a unitary bias, there is a danger that under a new census, your electoral politics, they will change. Your caste politics, they will change. Your gender based reservations, that is, you have this new reservation 33% women reservation that will come into force from 2026 or 29 based on 2026 census. All of this will be permanently skewed if we don't factor in the kind of uh, changes in the demography. For that purpose, studying the demography is very important. In today's article or yesterday's newspaper, there was an interesting tidbit in the editorial page only on the right hand corner. I don't know if it's today or yesterday, I don't remember exactly. The writer says that instead of focusing on population change, let us focus on electoral change. That is, the number of people who are 18 and above, we will see a percentage change after the census and give weightage to delimitation according to that. It's a very good idea, because let's say a lot of young children are born. If there is a very young population in that state, the percentage will drastically change, but they do not have voting rights. If you actually want to see a difference in delimitation, don't you think it's pertinent to consider people above the age of 18? That is also something that article discusses. It's an interesting idea. So you need to know what is delimitation. Delimitation means redrawing the constituencies according to the population. So if the number of seats in Lok Sabha increases, but they increase only as per population, there will be a skewed imbalance created because of this population imbalance. For example, in the north, as of now, you sweep the Hindi belt and you are back to power. You can completely ignore the southern states. There is no incentive for a national party to focus on the southern states in the present structure also. Of course, it's a different thing that you have different needs in the northern part of the country. Like, you cannot have a homogeneous need across all states. But this social engineering, when you have granular level data of OBCs, will become all the more toxic if they are only used for political gains in the future. And that is why there are a lot of ifs and buts. But don't you think data is required for a better policy making? For example, even within the OBCs, one particular OBC group might hijack the entire reservation that is there for all other OBCs. It's not like we club all the SCs, STs, OBCs under the same head, right? But even within those groups, there is casteism. Make no mistake, fundamentally, human nature is to seek dominance. So, when there is a collective, how do I put it? See, Indians become patriotic only when there is an external danger. And not just Indians, that's true for any country. Nation as an identity will make sense only when there is a logical necessity. When will you see the logical necessity of a nation as an identity? Only when you feel a threat. Similarly, deploy the same concept to a group, to an identity based group. The group will come together for collective bargaining power. Once they have that power, they will fight within. It is ultimately competition, survival of the fittest, Darwinism. Okay, so Darwinism will be exhibited both at an individual level and a social level. That is the nature of human beings and the behaviors tendency of human beings. Social policies should recognize this, and it is because of this, unless and until you have granular level data of how many OBCs are there, it is not possible for the welfare of every citizen. Even when you have let's say 27% of reservation, if the 27 percentage is completely taken away by one or two major caste groups, the other OBCs are still left behind. Marginalization of other SCs and STs who do not have access to this, access or awareness to this. It's, even though it is a government's duty, unless and until we have subcategorization, the last mile connectivity, or realizing Gandhi's talisman will still be a distant reality. So it is in this context, census is not just an enumeration tool but a developmental paradigm, or a granular level data. When you look at it as a snapshot, like a matrix of table, you will know exactly where to target, and that should be the kind of census we should aim for. That is the gist of this article. Okay. Of course, there are some, political connotations. You can ignore them. Now, empowering women in agriculture for food security. Here, you will see some important data that you will not find elsewhere, which you can use in your answers. So, once you want to, they will be repeating again and again. You will have to update the data according to the year in which you are writing the mains exam. Only then it is relevant. Until then, do not note anything. Just note down, just understand the conceptual part behind this. When you divide the entire economy, you will have broadly three sectors: primary, secondary, tertiary. What is the meaning of primary? Everybody says agriculture. But what is constituting, what is the logic behind putting agriculture under primary? Exactly. The definition of sectors of economy will say that anything that is attached to the exploitation or utilization of natural resources will be clubbed under primary sector. By this logic, where will you put mining? Okay, so please remember this. Agricultural contribution to GDP is 17%, or is it primary sector? We say 17 to 20% contribution is there from agriculture side for GDP component. Is it primary sector or agriculture alone? Is it a legitimate doubt? We are almost making primary sector equivalent to agriculture. Now I'm rephrasing the question. What is the contribution of primary sector to GDP? You know this concept of IIP? Index of Industrial Production. Do you have in this any activity from primary sector? So, if this is taken as a proxy for GDP growth, what is the relation between three sectors of economy? What constitutes the three sectors? What are the three factors, the three broad domains, and what industries come under these sectors? This is a homework for you today. What is the index of industrial production? What are the 8 core industries? Go back and revise this because these are FAQs in prelims. Anyway, coming back. Within the primary sector, you have this agricultural sector, and this agricultural sector is overworked and underpaid. Within this description itself, I am bringing in the concept of sociological concept of gender. Gender and sex. There are two different things. When you are talking about the biological aspect, it is sex. But when you are ascribing a role onto that biological entity, it becomes gender. Gender is associated with a role played by that sex in that society. Stereotypically, the care aspect of a society is given to women. So gender parity as a concept is about bringing parity of roles to respective sexes. Clear? So when we say words like gender parity, we are basically meaning that whatever may be the role that they are playing, they should be equally shared and equal access to opportunities should be ensured. Okay? So in that context, there is a very big problem in agriculture, not just in India but across the world, and that is called the feminization of agriculture. Clear? Feminization of agriculture is a concept wherein the low paying jobs in an agricultural sector like agricultural labor are given to women, and most often they are very laborious without a proper incentive structure. Okay? So how do we change this? You often hear this word empowerment. What do you mean by that? We already discussed. Let's say you have autonomy in decision making. Is that sufficient? There is something called sufficient and necessary conditions. Data sufficiency. So when you're talking about a concept of empowerment, it is autonomy plus agency. These are the key words that you need to use in the context of empowerment. See, I can simplify this in normal language also. Give them the freedom to do whatever they want and remove the barriers from women accessing whatever they want. Take this concept to the idea of liberty, positive liberty, negative liberty. Is this done? Polity classes? Not much? Okay, anyway. So this is how we are supposed to think. So feminization of agriculture is a problem. If you empower them, that problem will be solved. And not only it is solved, it will actually improve the state of our food security, because they will take care of, because of the traditional roles of being caregivers, they will take care of the entire family. So your familial structures depend on the empowerment of women. Ironically, there is one more study. By 2030, apparently, I don't know which survey is this, but this is a famous, something that's going viral. By 2030, almost 45% of women will remain unmarried and childless across the world. And it is not because of lack of choice, it is out of choice. Because they feel that their freedom is much more important. But there is another survey which is not related to this. It is expected that by 2055, the world is going to see a loneliness pandemic. In UK, you already have a ministry of loneliness to deal with the mental health of people. How do you correlate this both? Economic consumption, conspicuous consumption, and more wealth generation cannot be the end point of a society. At least, economic progress alone cannot be seen as a metric of freedom of a society. Use the same philosophy here. You empower women to keep the society intact. Okay, so our policies should be aligned to make sure that the dignity of every individual is intact, all the while you ensure that there is a social cohesion. Our policies, our cultural identities should be based on mutual respect and dignity, but not breakdown of social structures wherein capitalism or mindless consumption is glorified. All this can be I mean, these are the peripheral issues. I'm just asking you to think on those lines, because whatever you think and whatever you read, if you match up, you will get enough content. This content needs to be contextualized. I don't have to explain plain English if you read it, but unless I tell you the broad context of how you should think and where you should place this article, you will not be able to utilize this. Clear? So there are a lot of government schemes. For example, here, Mahila Kisan Sashактikaran Pariyojana. They upgrade the skills and increase resource access for women, while the submission on agricultural mechanization offers subsidies. So you are empowering them with skills, you are giving them money, and there are other parallel schemes which there are direct benefit transfers. Instead of putting money in the accounts of men, it is directly sent to the women's account of that family. So in that way, you are giving them the agency. Agency means the power to decide what is right for them. By this is an example of a state intervention to break down the traditional bias against women, so that the balance is restored between the two genders. Historically, division of labor is the basis of these roles, these gender typical roles, where the responsibility of taking care of the home is given to women. Because agriculture back then was not mechanized. It was much more laborious, which requires physical strength, and physiologically men were more capable than women, because that's how our physiology is built. It's pure necessity that created the social structures, which later became dogmas and prejudices. That needs to change. Deploying that same line of thought in this article, you are empowering women farmers to make them happier. Once you make a society happy, you are going to empower that entire nation. And that's the line of thought you should have, not just for women in agriculture, but for every section of the society. Have that empathy to see how and what keeps them happy, what values are we glorifying. For example, unsustainable consumption. See, the next generation, like, see, what is the formula of GDP growth? C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Okay. I'm linking this to the concept of consumption. Consumption to social structures. When you buy a product, let's say there is a concept of fast fashion, for example. Okay. So when you buy a product that would probably last only 6 months, but it will just cost you 500. Gen Z, or the younger crowd who are born after 1997, and Gen Alpha and so on and so forth. Okay. These generation people, most likely you guys, would prefer this fast fashion trends, where you would spend 500 rupees on a piece of clothing, make it last for like 6 or 8 months, and then discard it. This consumption is not sustainable. And that's why you have something called SDG number 12, responsible consumption. This fast fashion trend is very resource intensive. Where will all these discarded clothes go away if they don't last long enough? You need to recycle them. That will be a challenge. And not every cloth that is produced is biodegradable. They can be produced from fossil fuels also. So it's not healthy for our environment. And in all of those, in restoring that balance, women play a major role in every sector. So what values do we stand for? Is what you should be thinking, and that's how you should read this article. Clear? Next up. Yes. Yes. 8:30, right? I will leave you in 5 minutes. So you want me to stop? I mean, it's up to you. If you want me to stop, I'll stop. I'll just tell you what to do. you can okay, you take down this last article, nickel. When you are thinking of e-vehicles, nickel is a very important component. Within that, here in today's newspaper you have a nickel ore. Lithium, cobalt, nickel are very important in e-vehicles for energy transition. So you will have these ores, and within that you will have in this entire article, the whole funda is we are using e-vehicles to reduce pollution, but for extraction of these resources, if you are using more carbon intensive mechanisms, it will become a problem. So we need to figure out alternative technologies, and here we are using hydrogen plasma instead of the regular methods. So homework for you with respect to this article is to figure out which countries produce a lot of nickel. Indonesia, Russia, China. What is the supply chain of nickel? Extraction, refining, end product design, all this. Okay? With respect to refinement, China is much more powerful. Okay? Where will you find nickel in India? Odisha. So these are the things that you need to note from today's articles. Okay? That's it for today.